Hello, Moonheads, and welcome to our very first episode of Based on a Book, a podcast for the August Moon stans or haters, because we won't judge. Maybe. I'm Keri, the romance reader, who's currently in 25 fictional relationships.
I'm Lindsey, and I'm the suspense specialist.
And I'm Crystal. I'm a MILF.
Since this is our very first episode of our podcast, I feel like we should do a virtual cheers with our drinks to celebrate all the hard work that got us here.
Yes,
the blood, sweat, and tears that got us here.
Especially crying, throwing up.
Especially after this past weekend, this wild weekend that got us here. So cheers.
Cheers. So many tears.
If you couldn't already tell by the description, in this episode we are covering Idea of You by Robinne Lee, which is her debut novel, and the recent 2024 movie adaptation starring Nicholas Galitizine and our girl Anne Hathaway.
Woot woot.
For some reason, I don't know when this obsession started with Anne Hathaway, but for some reason we are all obsessed with Anne Hathaway.
Because she does so many book adaptations.
Yeah.
So many.
We just adore her. Like, as we were creating our list for our book to screen adaptations, we're like, Anne Hathaway, top of the list. Top of the list immediately.
She's perfect in everything she does.
Yep. She does. And she went from like the Princess Diaries and Ella Enchanted, the like wholesome teen girl, young star, into like The Devil Wears Prada, and now like into like a fucking sexual vixen in The Idea of You. And she made that transition so seamlessly with class and tact. And like, how could you just not love her?
Yeah, we adore her. So first things first, we want to set the scene with a good old synopsis, which I stole from the back of the book. So what we're started with, so Lynn is a 39-year-old owner of an art gallery in Los Angeles and is reluctant to take her daughter Isabel to meet her favorite boy band. But since her divorce, she's more eager than ever to be closer to Isabel. The last thing Selene expects is to make a connection with one of the members of the world-famous August Moon. But Hayes Campbell, is clever, winning, confident, and posh, and the attraction is immediate. That he is all of 20 years old further complicates things. What begins as quick hookups evolves into a passionate and genuine relationship. Selene and Hayes' journey spans continents as they navigate each other's worlds, from stadiums to tours to international art fairs to hideaways in Paris and Miami. Once they become a viral sensation and a target of rabid fans, Selene must face a wrenching decision on how her romantic life will impact those she cares about most. Okay, so now we know how Crystal feels immediately.
Right.
So, just to warn everyone, since this is our first episode for our listeners, we will be going over our ratings, reading formats, and a mini non-spoiler review from each of us. After that, we will get into full spoilers and a full breakdown of both the book and the movie, but don't worry, we will give you a big spoiler warning before we get into that. So first, Lindsey or Crystal, because we already know how Crystal feels. Apparently.
No, go ahead, Lindsey. Go right on ahead.
Lindsey, okay. What is your rating?
My rating is 4 out of 5 August Moon members. I'm excluding Oliver.
Oh. And that's a T.
Oh.
Right. And that's a T. Wait, did you read the book?
Yes.
Then watch the movie?
Yes.
Did you physically read, listen?
I read it. I got it on my Kindle. So I got it from Amazon.
Okay.
And yeah. Oof, that book.
Okay, Crystal.
I listened to the audiobook specifically because there's so much French in it, and like when I was reading it physically, I was stopping to try and pronounce it in my head, and I was like, this isn't gonna work. So I switched to the audiobook. And I will say the author is the narrator
Mm-hmm.
in the audiobook. And I'm not sure that I liked that or not, because she had a very dry reading for Selene.
Yeah.
But then as I got to know the character is kind of very dry. So that worked.
Mm-hmm.
I would say overall, though, I give this a rating of shocking. The book, I give the book a rating of 4 screaming preteens.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah,
Impressed.
but I
Actually
like it for reasons
surprised.
you won't like. So,
Oh, interesting.
I mean, I
That
hate the
is
book.
really surprising.
I hate it, but I kind of ended up liking it. So,
I love that. I gave it 3.75 Augies out of 5. I hate that name. I hate it, but I had to use it.
Oh, I
Their
liked the
fan
Augies rather than Moonheads.
Their fan base name cracks me up. I wonder why they changed it. I actually tried to look up why they changed from Augies to Moonheads, but I could not find it anywhere. So I actually read this book several months ago, and when I first read it, my 3.75 rating is from my first read of it. And it was mostly because it felt a little repetitive with the traveling a lot. And that is like my biggest pet peeve in books, is when it's super repetitive. So I didn't love it for that. But upon reread, I listened to it and I actually did not feel the same way. But I like to stand by my original rating with my first reaction to books. So I don't like to change it usually. But actually, I pulled this quote from my original review that I had put into Goodreads back several months ago when I read it. From my original review, I took this quote from the book and it says, "If I get hurt, I get hurt. It happens, right? Someone always gets hurt, but I don't want to miss out on us because I was afraid." And then I said after that, "Want to know who really got hurt in the end? Me." That was my review. That was it.
that was perfect. That's exactly how I felt.
Yeah, that was it. That was my review. So, mini non-spoiler review before we get into all the spoilers. Thoughts?
I mean, I think without getting into the spoilers, like, it's really obvious that this is about an older middle-aged woman, single mom, which I really, really relate to, dating a significantly younger boy. I mean, technically a man, but he was 20 and she was 39 and she turned 40 before he turned 21. It's to me, I tried to wrap my brain around that. I tried to say if it was, if the gender roles were reversed in this, it would be okay. But no, it wouldn't. Like, if my 20-year-old daughter were trying to date a 39-year-old man, I would still be kind of disgusted by that. I would be completely put off by that. And so it's not a gender thing. To me, I was so put off by that through the whole book, especially as it relates to her daughter in the story, like her preteen daughter who is a fan of the band. Like, I was so thoroughly disgusted and grossed out by that's what made me kind of really hate the story as I was reading it. I just kept thinking that she was being selfish and that this was unfair and that this is not appropriate. And it was so inappropriate that I struggled to read this book. Like, I struggled to force my way through it. And I kept telling myself, the podcast, you have to do this for the girls. And I'm glad I did. I'm really glad I did, because when I got to the end, I found myself really liking this story more. But yeah, I mean, I guess without giving any spoilers away, this was not my favorite book. And had I just known that part, I probably wouldn't have read it. So
Yeah. Lindsay?
I feel kind of bad because I think I'm the exact opposite. My review is the audacity of this book, because it hooked me as good as it. Like, it was just, I had no idea I had like this desire to read fanfic.
Right?
So there was a rumor that this was originally a One Direction fanfiction, but I looked more into that, and I don't know where this rumor started. I don't know, it's because of the large similarities. I mean, come on, this man is Harry Styles with the similarities where he dates older women. He has the accent, he's tattooed, he's in the boy band. I mean, the similarities are crazy, but there is no I could not find where she actually confirms that it is originally a fan fiction.
Yeah, in fact, I read quite the opposite, that
Yeah.
it wasn't fan fiction and that Hayes is based off of multiple people, and she even said like Prince Harry.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't see that one,
I
but
was
okay.
like, I don't know
Alright.
about that. Interesting. Is it just the accent? Is that all that's going here? I don't know about that.
Just being British, maybe where he went to school, I don't know.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting, but I
So-
totally agree.
Were you hooked by it too, Keri, right away?
Yeah, I was immediately hooked, and I was very invested. There were definitely moments where I was extremely uncomfortable
Yes.
with the relationship. I mean, as someone who's a romance reader who actually loves a forbidden romance trope, I mean, obviously, reading fiction, I would
Right.
like an age gap trope in fiction, and reading it, I had that expectation going in. I usually enjoy reading that romance trope, but there were just like little comments, which we're going to get into later, that made me super uncomfortable. But I
See-
just was hooked, and we'll get into it because that ending,
Yeah.
that
So,
ending really
feel
got
like-
me.
Though with the trope and with like, because I usually don't mind an age gap trope in a lot of romance, but specifically in fantasy romance, right?
Mhm.
So there's that
Where it's 500-year-old Faye.
Yeah, no.
right.
And a 20-year-old
The
Right.
500
female.
age gap.
And so
Yeah.
it's really easy to accept it then because you know it's not even close to reality, right? Like this would
Mhm.
never actually happen. And somehow because this book is based in this world with no fantasy characters, it's a modern day, romance. I think that's kind of what bothered me so much, is because like, this could be
Yeah.
real. And that I was so uncomfortable by it. And I think the difference, like I was uncomfortable from the very beginning. And I think like, and not to toot my own horn, but like when I was in my mid to late 30s, quite literally, I was a MILF. I was hot. I felt good. I was proud of my body and myself. And like I was single, I was dating around, I was having a great time living my best life. And I did get hit on by younger men sometimes. Like I would go to the bar and these kids who were barely legal enough to be in there would hit on me, and I would laugh and I would joke and I would say, "Go home to your mom." Like, was I flattered by it? Absolutely. Did it make me feel really pretty and sexy? Yes. But did I ever entertain the idea of like getting physical and spending time with children half my age? Absolutely not. And I think I was so put off by the whole thing and so uncomfortable and so conflicted even continuing to read this, because I know that there are people out there reading this thinking that this is their ideal romance. And that age gap, that power gap, that it freaks me out, and I can't handle it. I couldn't handle it.
I think what made me more uncomfortable was the Hollywood aspect, because that there's no rules
Right.
in Hollywood.
Right.
So they're just doing whatever they want there.
Right.
And it kind of showed in this book, I felt.
Mhm.
So I think that aspect kind of made me uncomfortable as well. But I don't know, like something about it just like grabbed me and just hooked me. put its claws in me, and I could not stop. And I'm just like bawling my eyes out at the end. I'm like,
That was
why am
me.
I crying?
That was me.
Why am I
I
crying?
mean, I totally cried too, but
Yeah.
I cried for different reasons, I think,
Yeah.
than you did. And like,
All right, let's
give the spoilers.
Yeah, let's go. Let's full spoilers ahead because we're about to get into the idea of you, both the book and the movie. So if you have not watched the movie or read the book, do that. Come back and join us. So let's get into it. So let's start from the very beginning. Start with the book where we're first introduced to Solon and her daughter, Isabel, who is 12 in the book.
Yeah.
In the movie, much older.
She turned 17 in the book, or in the movie. She turned 17.
Yeah.
That bothered me too, because they clearly,
Really?
yes, because not only was Isabel 12 in the book and then 17 in the movie, but Hayes is 24 in the movie and not 20.
Yes.
So like clearly even Hollywood was like, we need to soften this a bit. That was a little too much.
Well, I feel like that's typical for like whenever books are adapted into movies.
But I think them softening it cheapened the whole storyline of the book, right? Because the whole storyline of the book is he's still a kid. He has not experienced even being an adult yet. And at 24, you're still kind of a kid, but you definitely have more grown-up experiences at 24 than you do at 20.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so like that argument that her friend's telling her, like, what are you doing? What are you thinking? It doesn't hit as hard when someone's 24 versus when they're 20.
Yeah.
You know?
I definitely agree with that.
And changing Isabel's age, like in the book, I was so disappointed in Solène, specifically as a mother. I think she failed her daughter. And that's, I think, another part that just made me not want to read this book. Because for someone who's like, I'm divorced, I want to make sure that I'm spending these formidable years with my daughter and spending more time with her and making this relationship between me and my daughter a priority, she instead turns around and is like, I'm going to make myself a priority and screw that kid, you know? And I mean, there's nothing wrong with a mother making herself a priority, but not at the expense of the relationship of her and her child.
Yeah. And I think that relationship doesn't make such a big impact in the movie.
Right.
Because the age gap is not so between mother and daughter.
Right.
It's not so significant. And
the daughter's more worldly at that point, too.
Yeah, yeah. And also, I think a really big difference between the book and the movie right from the beginning is that whenever they're introduced, Solène is not supposed to take Isabel and her friends to the concert. And Daniel, which is the ex-husband, who is trash.
Trash.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel, he is supposed to take them to the concert. And then so Solène, something comes up for Daniel.
Bails last minute.
Yeah, bails last minute. So then Solène has to take all of them to the concert. Which if none of this happened and Daniel took them, none of this would have happened. She would have never met Hayes or anything.
This is all Daniel's fault.
Yeah, just blame Daniel.
It's always the ex-husband.
Always blame him. So Solène takes them to the concert, but a huge difference, I think, in the book and the movie that makes this whole thing not hit as hard is that in the movie, Isabel is not like as big a fan as she is in the book.
Right.
Like she's like, this is like a band I used to love when I was younger. You know, I'm not into them as much as I was
exactly.
when I was younger.
The book, they're her whole world.
She's peak fangirl. She's peak fangirl in the book.
And she's peak Hayes.
Yes.
In the movie, she's all about Rory.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Like Rory was on her Solène in the movie says Rory was on the walls, like on the posters. But in the book, like Hayes was like everywhere, all over the walls and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that makes it not feel so like significant in the movie.
Right.
And her daughter is not as upset later on in the movie as she is in the book. But so in the book, they meet the band as like a VIP meet and greet, the whole band, which I think it's interesting that they changed one of the band members' names.
I did too. I thought that was weird. But
you know what my theory is? My theory is because isn't one of the One Direction members' name is Liam?
Yeah, I think. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure.
So in the
Too old
book,
to remember.
one of his names is Liam. And they changed the guy's name from Liam to, I forget what his name is. They changed it to, let me think. Adrian. They changed Liam to Adrian in the movie. And I'm like, I swear it's that One Direction thing. It's the One Direction. Because they want to say that this is not related to One Direction, but I swear it is. So, like, in the book, they meet the entire band, which is kind of similar to the movie, except they're at Coachella, which I think is interesting.
Yes.
I guess because they're older.
Yeah, I think because obviously you're not taking your middle schooler or your junior high kid to Coachella.
Yeah.
But your 17-year-old, or soon to be 17-year-old, even that to me seems a little weird. But
also, the entire situation of in the movie, because in the book, they meet just through the meet and greet. That's how her and Hayes meet for the first time. But in the movie, the whole thing of her meeting through the dressing room.
I hated that. I got such secondhand embarrassment. I hated it so much.
Like, who walks in like a dressing room and is like banging on the bathroom door, like ready to go in?
Right, and who confuses, like, the minute you open that, because I've seen some fancy porta potty type get-ups. But like, who opens that door, sees the settee and the little closet and the nice mirror and the nice little sitting area and thinks to themselves, oh, this is clearly the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
What?
Like, there's like a whole, like, it's like a little mini room
a trailer
in here.
It's, you know, like, it's a little tiny home, and she just walks in there and is like, clearly they set up bathrooms for the VIP passes that are single toilet in this huge trailer. Like, and you thought that was for you, honey? Like,
and you thought it was okay to go knock on the door?
Right?
And he walks out and he's like, what the hell?
That was just a bit, I was like, what? That was, to me, it was, I mean, like, I get that she's some fancy schmancy art gallery owner or whatever, but like, you can't be that naive. No one is naive enough to think that that was a public use restroom.
Right.
Yeah.
No one.
And also, like, she knew the band. Like, whenever they were driving to the concert, in the movie, at least, not in the book. The book, she's very much, like, has no idea who this band is and doesn't listen to them whatsoever. Like, she's just watching them all, like, fangirl over everybody.
Yep.
Right.
And in the movie, she's, like, singing along with everyone as they're driving to Coachella.
Okay. Yep. So as a mother of a girl, there were lots of songs I knew the words to and would sing along in the car with my kid without knowing any of the band names or the band members or what they look like. I didn't know any of that. I still don't know any of that. But I know the lyrics and we're going to sing.
Yeah.
So, like, I totally get that she didn't recognize him right away.
But
like,
she knew the posters.
She knew the poster, but maybe because it, like,
that's probably why they made Rory her number one instead of Hayes, so they could.
Right. Because she did recognize the name when he was like Hayes Campbell, and she was like, "Oh crap!" Like, it kind of, and I mean, honestly, like, if my daughter mentioned someone, like, I wouldn't recognize half of the people in the music industry that my daughter loves now.
Mm-hmm.
But if you said their name, I would be like, "Oh, that one!" Like, so you know, like, I gave her a pass on that. I still don't give her a pass for walking into that trailer thinking it was the restroom, though. Like, come on, lady.
Yeah, there's not even at Coachella. You could not convince me.
Come on, Anne Hathaway, get it together.
Dirty Coachella, dirty sandy Coachella does not have that fancy bathrooms. You could not convince me. Even like the meet and greet, like someone needs to send us a picture of what the bathrooms actually look like at Coachella, because
Yes,
I don't
please.
believe it. Or the VIP areas, because that was way too nice.
That looks so fancy. And I mean, I've been to some VIP meet and greet the band situations
Yeah.
that were nice, but they didn't look like that.
No.
Right.
And
I've never-
and mine were all indoors, not at Coachella. You know what I mean? So
right.
like,
I've never been to Coachella. I've been to music festivals. I've been in the VIP section. They have really nice bathrooms with water and stuff.
right.
And air
They
conditioning.
still didn't look like that.
Still didn't look like that.
We're so caught up on the bathrooms.
Hey, man.
We talked for 20 minutes about the bathrooms.
It's the most unbelievable part of the story.
Priorities, folks.
Okay, so in the book, I wanted to grab this quote because I feel like this pretty much sets up the entire story. So in the book, after they do their meet and greet, and Hayes is just like flirting away with Selene the entire time, and they take a photo together, and she says, "The first photo I have of myself with Hayes is of the 9 of us in the basement of the Mandalay Bay. He has one arm draped around me and the other around Isabel. I'd ordered 2 copies. In time, Isabel would destroy hers."
Yeah.
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 Sets up this entire story.
Right.
Page 7.
Ugh.
Just.
And you're just like, this is about to go downhill from there.
Mm-hmm.
It's when the bad feelings started.
Yep. Not the bad feelings.
The bad feelings.
That's when
we all went, oh.
The dread.
Yes. So then after that, I need to talk about this. So in the book, they all watch in concert. Great, watching August Moon perform and all that stuff. And I do love the added touch in the movie where he changes the set to a song for it to sing for her. And that gets brought up later as like a situation. Yeah. But in the book, later on, like they get brought backstage. Her and like, how many is like 3 other like 12-year-old girls, because it's like Isabel and her 2 friends. Mm-hmm. And he reveals like how old he is. She says, "I could be your mother." And he's like, "But you're not." And then there's this very strange, horny description of Hayes doing the worm.
Oh. What was that? I can't. Like, why? Why was it even in there? Like,
the most bizarre.
Was that supposed to be sexy? Was that what was that about?
That was probably the weirdest thing I have ever read.
I felt so out of touch. I was like, is this what we're into now? Because it's not there for me.
Like,
I was the same age as Selene when this book was written, so I can tell you with 100% certainty that at that time in the United States of America, 39-year-old women were not interested in seeing anyone do the worm, let alone a 20-year-old. At all.
You really thought, like, she really was like watching this 20-year-old boy, and you just know that these boys were just like obnoxious. Like, you can just tell. I mean, it's kind of shown like in the movie too, how obnoxious they are.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Oh, I got something to show. Like, I know how to impress this 39-year-old woman, and I'm about to knock it out of the park right now. Watch." And he gets on the ground and does the worm.
I swear. And this is why when I was in my like peak, I still wasn't going to date a 20-year-old because they think somehow that's what's going to impress me. Like, no.
I'm getting ick again just thinking about it.
It just was so awful. Why?
And yet here I am continuously turning pages, ready for the next chapter. For some reason, I'm like, ew, that was so disturbing. Next page, like, I'm ready to go.
See,
why? I don't know why.
Why? And so I shut off, like I pause and walk away, and it was 3 more days before I could come back to this book.
Okay, maybe I did, like, close the Kindle for, like, 5 minutes, and then I came back. Because I was like, I had to process the absolute ridiculous description of the horny worm and then come back.
Not the horny
Horny
worm.
Because it was like, I wish I had it up for me right now to read, because
it was just so dumb.
It was so stupid.
And then when he references it later, and he's all like, I don't remember what she says, something about like, why am I even here? And he was like, it was the worm, wasn't it? Like, what? No.
Yeah, no.
I can't believe that
shut up.
that scene got a callback.
But I
Right?
think it really was the worm for her. That's the problem.
Oh my God. Actually, you know what though? That's a thought that like as obnoxious as these boys are. I mean, legally men, but their brains are not fully developed yet. Science says that. No, science says that. That's not me trying to be mean. Science says their brain is not fully developed. Like, maybe part of her, because she got married young, she had her daughter youngish, mid to early 20s. Like, maybe she was trying to recapture what she felt like she lost in her 20s.
I think that is definitely something to think about, because
It still doesn't make it right.
yeah, but I think that is something to discuss, because she just went through a divorce, very like vulnerable right now because of how this relationship ended.
Mhm.
And there's this man telling her all these things and is immediately so attracted to her and nonstop obsessed with her. And
he has the means to pursue her.
Everybody loves.
And that's the other thing is like, because like legit, same thing for me. I wasted my 20s being married to someone that we just didn't last. That's all. But like, so I did spend my 30s kind of partying and being wild and reclaiming my youth. And I had a blast. And I wonder, had I met an incredibly rich and famous 20-year-old, would I have, because like part of why I didn't want to date 20 and 21-year-olds back then was that like, how are you going to pay for dinner? You know what I mean? Like, are we going back to your mama's place to hang out after this?
You can't even go to the bar.
Right?
Well, he could go out and drink because he's famous.
Exactly.
Like, it was different because the rules did not apply.
Exactly. Which still made it gross.
Yeah, it was disturbing. Like, moving on to like the next scene is like they meet for lunch and she's like, we can't even order a drink. And he's still ordering a drink at the bar.
Because he can.
Because he's like, you have to be confident enough and you can order the drink. And he's famous. He can do whatever he wants. He's got the money.
Mm-hmm. White privilege. White famous privilege.
White male privilege.
Mm-hmm.
And then during this meeting, he reveals that he slept with Oliver's older sister when he was 14 and she was 19, which they never mention in the movie, which is understandable.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that they did not mention it in the movie. And I was like, and the way that it is talked about in the book, it's like almost like it's like a good thing. At least that's how I interpreted it.
He's proud of it. He's not like he brags on it.
Yeah.
And nobody. Well, it's a secret though. Like Oliver doesn't know.
Yeah.
The rest of the band doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so like she doesn't say to him like, "Hey, that wasn't cool of someone that age to take advantage of someone as young as they did." Like that was Solen's moment to say like, "Hey, that wasn't cool." But she didn't. And he just continued to brag on it, which is another one of those moments that like, you're the one in this relationship with a fully developed brain. Maybe you should use it to teach or to kind of, not necessarily teach, but like, I don't know, like provide a safe space for him to talk stuff out, but like make sure that you're, providing reasonable adult, fully developed brain feedback. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't want to jump too far ahead into the story, but there's the scene where they're staying at the hotel and there's the young girl out in the hallway that's crying
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
who had lied about her age. Turns out she was underage, and she scolds the band members. Hey, you need to be more careful.
Right.
Well,
But she didn't do that to Hayes.
right. And obviously, we're not blaming Hayes from when he was 14,
Right.
but she should have stuck up for him.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt like that entire situation was kind of like blown over, but I don't really know what she was supposed to do in the
Right.
scenario.
But I really hate that instead of like I don't know what she was supposed to have done. You know, like, should she have found out who that girl's parents were and said, hey, like, your kid is in a position that's not safe, you know? Because honestly, as an adult, if one of my daughter's friends had something similar had happened, and I found out about it, you better believe I would have gone to their parents and said, like, hey, your kid's not safe. This is not okay, you know? And yet she just kind of scolds the other two band members like, you should know better, you know, young girls lie, you should know better. And they're like, oh, she said she was 18, she said she was 18,
And she had the school ID. And
yeah, and she was like, you know, like, don't do it again, shame, shame, shame on you. Like, that was a really big deal.
yeah.
Like, that's rape. That, you know, like, period. There's a significant power imbalance there. You took advantage of a very young girl, and that's not okay. Like, I don't know, they just kind of glossed over it in the book. Like, it got a mention of like, don't do that again, boys.
Yeah,
Like,
it was very
gross.
Yeah, it was gross and weird. That was a very bizarre situation. But I don't even know, like, more talking about the Oliver sister situation. Like, I don't even know how she should have handled that. Like, you're just meeting Hay, or you're just going to dinner with Hayes.
True.
It's like, what am I supposed to do with this information? Like,
Right.
I barely even know this guy.
True.
So I'm not going to go, like, scolding him, and I'm just meeting him for dinner for the first time.
Well, not like scolding him, just being like, are you okay? Like,
Yeah.
you don't think that affected how you feel about relationships moving
Yeah.
forward in your life? You know,
Yeah.
like,
I don't know
that's
if
a big deal.
I don't know if I think she like was trying I don't remember if this happened or not in the book, whether she had said something to him trying to talk about it, like trying to get deeper into the situation.
Yeah, I can't really remember,
Maybe,
honestly.
yeah.
Not at that moment she didn't, but I think further down because they do talk
Later.
about it later.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does come back.
Yeah, I think she kind of was just like not really knowing what to do with that information at that point.
Right.
And then it was just like moved over. I was like, this is a little weird to just like gloss over this situation. But I think it was kind of showing why he goes, like, there is a reason why he is going for older women, maybe from like a trauma or something. I'm not sure.
I mean, maybe, but well, kind of, yes. And also, like, again, to skip way ahead, but remember how he tells her about the like hookup he had, and I can't remember what country it was in, but it was a country where he didn't speak the language very well. And he had this hookup, and he kind of gently explains to the girl, like, hey, you have to go.
I
like,
think it was in Japan.
I was
going
gonna say Japan, yeah.
and then she like threatens to commit suicide, and that really traumatized him. And since then he's like, I don't even mess with girls anymore, I want women.
Yes.
Because I'm too afraid to have to deal with something like that again.
Speaking of that scene, I really wanted to hear the song 7 Minutes.
No, I was like,
I know. I
like-
was really hoping that they would have done that song for the movie, and they didn't. And I was sad.
I was kind of sad that there were very, very, very few lyrics in the book. Because normally when there's a book or a story about a band, at some point they're going to quote lyrics or share a song or whatever.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, shoot, in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, we got songs from elves, songs from gnomes, songs from orcs, there's songs everywhere, and there's no band anywhere. This is a book about a band,
Yeah.
and there's no
I feel like
songs.
it's really hard. I feel like it's really hard to write lyrics.
It's a boy band.
Yeah.
Like and like an admittedly cheesy boy band.
Yeah,
Like
true,
she
true.
should have come up with like a couple of stanzas, just thrown some in there,
A
like
chorus, something.
right, like anything.
Yeah, that's
And then to
true.
refer to a specific song,
Yeah,
and never nothing. Like
yeah. So in the book at that point, they leave each other with intentions of starting a situationship, but in the movie, they have no intentions of starting a relationship. Whenever they meet each other, I think he comes to her studio, they have lunch or something at her house, they share a little kiss, and then she's like, yeah, no, I can't do this. You're way too young for me, you gotta go. And so I thought that was an interesting change. And then in the movie, this really cracked me up. In the movie, he was wondering, or he was like texting her and kept like trying to convince her to meet up. Or am I getting the locations wrong? I think it was like meeting her in New York. Wanted her to come to New York.
he wanted her to come to New York.
Yeah, wanted her to come to New York to meet. And she was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. In the movie. And then she watched a corny music video of the band and then said, yep, gotta
That's
go.
the guy for me.
Let me get my sexy dress on, put on his watch that he left at at my house, and like have this like iconic walk down the hotel hallway,
Wearing the long coat.
wearing the trench coat.
Yep.
With this like sexy dress underneath. Like she watched this like corny music video.
And that's what changed her mind.
And she was like, yep, he's the one.
That
This
was
is
the
the one.
movie's interpretation of the worm.
That was the moment.
That was it.
In the book, though, there's like so much build up to that moment.
In the book, though, too, like Solène is the kind of businesswoman who is flying all over the world for business, right?
And that was not in the movie.
That was not in the movie. In the movie, very specifically, like in the book, she has to fly to the East Coast to take her daughter to camp for the summer. In the movie, she drives her daughter to camp, like in her Subaru. Like it's the same car that she has in LA. So you know it's not a rental, right? Like she... In the movie, they make it seem like she's either at the gallery or she's at home. But in the book, like she's in France, she's on the East Coast, she's on the West Coast, she's flying to different galleries, she's, like in all these different art events. Like she's a very busy, world-traveled, well-traveled businesswoman.
And she always aligns, her purpose is always to align the schedule, like her own schedule with him. In the movie, after that first hookup in New York, she's like, come to tour.
At his beck and call.
Yeah, he's like, come on tour with me. And she's like, okay. And then like follows him around the world on tour, like as like a side person, as like a side chick.
And in the book, part of what makes the relationship difficult is lining up their schedules, because she's not willing to give up time with her daughter, time with at the gallery, time at these different events that she has to go to. And he respects that very much.
And he gives up his time to meet her at her shows.
So, like the relationship building in the book is a two-way street, and there's it's definitely like, if he wasn't 20, it was actually a somewhat healthy relationship of like, he was willing to sacrifice certain things, she was willing to sacrifice things, they respected each other's priorities and boundaries. When it came to that kind of stuff, he respected her as a businesswoman, she respected him as an entertainment professional, and we don't see that in the movie at all. In fact, we see a
No.
disregard for her job because he's like, "Oh, I'll just buy everything in the gallery, and then
Yeah.
you won't have anything to do for the rest of the day except for deal with me,"
And in the book, he had so much respect for the art that she sold.
Trying
And
to learn about it.
Yes, and I love that. And you know what? Even though he was young, he was not, even though, disregard the worm situation, okay? And sometimes he would be a little immature when it came to like his friends and all that stuff.
Little.
But he was actually very mature in a lot of situations in their relationship, considering
Definitely.
he was only 20 years old.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, a lot of things. I mean, he was even upset with her because she was not telling her daughter about their relationship.
Right.
She was actually being immature in that situation. I mean, there could be an argument made where like he doesn't understand what's going on in
The
that
dynamics
situation.
of
The
a
dynamics of
parent-child
that.
relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not like he wanted to hide that relationship from her
Right.
daughter.
Well, he also understood that her daughter was going to find out whether
Right.
Solane told her or not.
But I think a lot of that, though, is that, like, as a parent, I'm going to wait until I know this relationship is real before I say anything to my child,
Yeah.
right? But as, like, from Hayes's point of view, I'm a mega star. The world will find out at some point, and then your daughter's going to find out. And wouldn't you rather be ahead of that? You
Yeah.
know? And so, like, I see why Solène was like, no, I'm not ready. That's not the right time. But I also see why Hayes was like, there's not gonna be a good time. So you need to pick the, a time ASAP before the world picks it for you.
Because at first he wasn't super serious. They weren't super serious about the relationship in the book. This is not really shown in the movie at all. But in the book, what I love about this book, because I feel like romance books don't really do this very often. And because, when we read romance books, we want like all the good stuff, in the relationship. But I love that we are seeing when she's like, are you with other women? Like in the beginning, she's like, what's going on? Like, how's this relationship going? And he's like not confirming or denying whether he's with other women. And because like, I feel like that's realistic. Like if he was just like, he's like a pop star, and like, if he was just like, yes, I'm dropping everything for this one stranger I met at a meet and greet. Like, I feel like that'd be like,
I love that he doesn't
okay.
lie about it. Like, because he's not coming out and saying, like, yeah, I slept with, like, 2 girls yesterday. Like, he doesn't say that, but he never once says, no, there's no one else, until that's genuinely the case.
Yeah.
He's honest and upfront about it, and I respect that a lot.
I'm not going to lie. There's that scene where he was like, I think I'm falling in love with you. And she was like, you can't tell me that when you're sleeping with other women. And I was like, oh.
Yes.
Oh, man.
That made me sick to my stomach, but I love when books make me sick to my stomach. I want to feel sick.
I love the realistic, like, feelings that we see from Solène, like that insecure about the relationship. Like, if I'm not the only one, like, I'm not mad at you, I get it, but also, like, I have, like, the boundaries are different based on whether this is just sex or if there's a relationship here. Like, that changes things, so I need to know where we stand, I love that conversation. I love the fact that they brought that in there. I love her insecurity coming out with that. Like, I did hate in the movie, though. Like, so, like, in the book, she's insecure not because of her own body, and not even because of her age, but specifically because she knows he's a megastar and that there are women throwing themselves at him, right? And so it's not an insecurity on her part. It's a, can I trust him? Which makes sense. But like, then in the movie, you see her kind of insecure about her body. Like, looking at the other younger women that are with the band, these young girls with these perfect young girl bodies, in bathing suits and bikinis, and here she is in her one piece and she feels the need to cover up. And that was not the Selene from the book. The Selene from the book was pretty confident in her body and how beautiful she was and how she dressed and how she carried herself.
Yeah. I didn't love that either, to be honest. I thought Anne Hathaway did such a good job with Selene, especially those like emotional moments, like the way that Anne Hathaway was like crying
Mm-hmm.
during these moments. I immediately tears.
Yes.
Immediately tears.
Yep.
Especially so once we get to this like peak moment of Isabel finding out, her daughter finding out about this relationship, completely different, in my opinion, in the book and in the movie. In the book, it is absolutely insane. Like, she finds out whenever she sees them outside kissing after a date, and it's not good, freaks out. And then in the movie, she hears about it through the media.
Right.
And it's like a very like civil conversation, and Selene is crying to her and telling her that she like cares about Hayes and wants to be with Hayes, and she's just like, okay, like let's do this. Like,
I swear to you, that is the difference between a 12-year-old and a 17-year-old.
yes, yeah. That's why I think that was like the very big deal that they changed the age.
It was such a huge deal because it not only did it change the dynamic between her and her daughter,
it changed the plot.
It changed the plot entirely, because a huge part of why Selene doubts the relationship in the book is because her daughter is so emotionally and mentally affected, not just by the fact that the paparazzi is involved and that there's these crazy fans or whatever. That's part of it, but it's mostly because her daughter is just so distraught over the fact that her mother just stole her fictional boyfriend, the man of her dreams, and here's my mom dating the man of my dreams.
Yeah.
And a 12-year-old is not going to have the mental capacity to say, well, let's do what makes you happy, Mom.
Yeah. She's like, but Mom, in the book, she's like, but Mom, I love him. Right. And Selene has this moment where she realizes like that her daughter thinks this is a competition.
Yeah.
Between them two against Hayes.
Yeah.
And that's like really sad. And I'm like, why?
Really
it was stressing me out so bad that she was taking so long to tell her daughter.
Yeah.
And here's Daniel over here. I'm like, oh, are you dating that celebrity on? I'm like, shut up, Daniel. Like, no one cares about you and Eva.
Which, speaking of Daniel and Eva, she leaves him in the movie.
I know, that was very bizarre.
In the book, she's pregnant and they get married.
Yeah.
What?
Maybe they were trying to give us like this moment that we deserved in the book, which is like Daniel's demise.
Daniel alone.
Yeah.
I feel like, though, the book was more realistic.
100%.
I think the movie was very much a let's give the audience what they want.
Yes. Yep, totally.
And can I rate the movie? Because it's different than my book rating.
Yeah, rate the movie. Do it.
I rate the movie like a solid 2. Crying teenagers.
Honestly, I think of the movie and the book like two different entities.
I have to, yeah.
Yeah, they're not the same.
I do, and I still don't like it.
like the movie feels like something that you watch like in the background to like make you happy, like while you're like cleaning or something.
Feel good rom-com.
Yeah, feel good rom-com. I'll tell you one thing that the movie gave me, and it was the epilogue that I needed. The epilogue that the book did not give me.
I didn't like it.
Okay, we'll get into it. Hold on. We'll get into it. Well, first, so through all the fan craziness, well, first of all, the media release in the book, which was this in the movie? I can't remember. What the picture that releases?
There was a picture. It was not as spicy.
Yeah, there was a little spicy picture of them on their little vacay in the book that gets released, and everything goes absolutely insane with that fan craziness. And I think that's when everything boils over at that point, where you have like police coming to the gallery. She's getting dildos sent to her house, social
Yeah,
media
they get her
threats.
home address, which is
Yeah.
terrifying. Like,
Yeah.
Yes.
that would freak me out too. Like,
Yeah.
they're
Harassment.
they're calling her gallery nonstop and
Yeah.
leaving threats on the voicemail.
Yeah, spray painting the gallery. All these things build up, and then the last straw, which is also in the movie, is that her daughter is getting harassed at school.
By her own classmates.
Yes.
But
And
not
then,
by the psycho fans that are sending,
Oh,
like,
no.
anonymous fans. These are people she knows
yeah,
harassing her.
yeah. And her crush tells her to tell her mom that he turns 18 in like a couple months. And then she's like, done.
Yep.
Last straw. This is over. She, like, in the book, she has like one last like moment with Hayes and then leaves. But in the
Mhm.
movie, they just have like this last conversation with him. And what I think is odd in the movie is that he says, he's like, I have to go help Ollie with something and then I'll be back. And then she has that conversation with him. But I'm like, they didn't.
I don't even know. I think they just needed an excuse for him to leave in the
But
movie. But they don't even explain what the problem Ollie had was or anything like that. He just
No.
leaves. Like, they could have just
Yeah.
been like, I gotta go because I'm performing here this weekend
Yeah.
or something. But no.
I have a
like,
photo shoot. I have an interview.
Yeah,
Whatever,
it could have been
yeah.
anything. It was that was very bizarre. Like, they did totally throughout that storyline, but then kept like bringing in his little Ollie's comments and then bringing in that last line for him to leave, which was
I have
strange.
a theory in the book.
I also have a theory about him helping Ollie.
Okay, what's your theory?
He's hiding a body.
Okay.
Who's
I
hiding
mean-
a body?
Ollie.
I mean, you would think that, Miss Murder
Yeah,
Queen.
Yeah, Miss Murder Queen would think that.
That's why they don't talk about it.
She wants it to be like true crime immediately.
That's why they can't talk about it.
Okay,
Well,
okay.
like, in the
Love that
book,
theory.
in the book, Ollie finds out that Hayes slept with his sister.
Yes.
He's very mad. He
Mm-hmm.
punches Hayes in the face, breaks his nose. You know, there's a whole thing that he ends up missing a show and has to, have surgery or whatever. And like, but Hayes forgives Ollie. And, I guess Ollie whispers something in his ear in the huddle or whatever. And all is forgotten and forgiven or whatever. And then like later Selena's like, what's going on? And he was like, you asked me what my darkest secret was, and I told you anything else is not my secret.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ollie was in love with Hayes.
Oh, I knew that. Yeah, definitely.
Ollie was
yeah.
hardcore in love with Hayes. And I think that's what they were trying to allude to in the movie, was that like he's going to see Oliver because Oliver needs him. Like Oliver maybe was having some sort of like breakdown moment, like, why are you with her when I love you so much or whatever? I don't know. But like, I think they were trying to allude to that in the movie and failed.
Interesting. Oh, I didn't even think of that. I was like just so caught up in the whirlwind of like this chaos that was happening in the end. And I honestly didn't know how it was going to end, because as a romance reader, usually you expect your happily ever after. And I love an unexpected ending in non-traditional romance books. Even though, romance girlies, they like to tussle when there's no HEA.
Mm-hmm.
But I love a romance book with no HEA.
This is why my rating went up.
Yeah.
To a 4. This is the ending of the book is why my rating went up.
It was a 3 for me for most of the book. And then it went to, because I'm extra, it went to a 0.75. Because I would not give it a 4. It went to a 0.75 because of that ending was absolutely epic and totally unexpected. Which, let's get into
we've
that
given
ending.
the spoiler alert. Just tell it.
Yes. So, in the movie, let's do the movie ending first. Movie gives us, in my opinion, a pretty good expected epilogue that you would get from a rom-com. Is it a rom-com?
It's just a shitty romance.
It's a rom.
A rom. It's a
Rom-com.
rom. It's a rom with 0.5 of a com.
Yep.
And 5 years later, so they break up at the end. Very emotional, sad, whatever.
And he's all like,
he leaves.
give me 5 years. And she's like, no, it's too long to not pursue our happiness.
But like, why
you
did she
pursue
try to
yours
pick
and I'll
him up
pursue
from
mine.
the airport? Why?
Yeah,
did
why
she-
did she do that? I really would have been like,
Yeah.
I did too.
If I was going to break up with someone, I would definitely not go to the airport.
Well, like, I would probably pick you up and then take you where, because I'm not going to break up with you over the phone or via text or whatever. I would pick you up. I would take you where you need to be.
And
then I would break up with you and leave. But she, like, picks him up at the airport and then, like, doesn't take him anywhere. It's just, like, get out of my car. Like, what?
Hey,
Why?
it's over. Leave.
Can you imagine he's been like flying for like how many hours?
Right, to go
And
help
he's
to go help Ollie.
to go
air
help
quotes.
air quote go help Ollie, whatever they were doing.
And then
Oh,
she's
my.
like, he gets in the car and he's like, I'm so knackered, and she's
Yeah.
like, get out. Like, what? Like,
So in the movie, it goes 5 years later, and Isabel's off to college, and then Selene is like looking to the TV channels and sees Hayes on the Graham Norton show singing solo.
Hey, I just want to throw out there that, like, I love the Graham Norton show
I
so
love
much.
the Graham Norton
So when I
show.
saw that, I was like, this movie's not that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You ain't up a star.
Right? Like 0.75.
Yeah, 0.75. So he's singing solo, and then he visits her gallery in Los Angeles.
He says in the Graham Norton show that, like, Graham Norton's like, well, what are you going to do? What are you doing next?
Yeah.
He's like, I think I'm going to take some time off. I think I might go to LA. And he's like, what's in LA? And he was like, oh, there's just someone I really want to see.
Yep.
And she just doesn't believe it's her at all.
She's just like,
oh, that's sweet. Whatever. He's moved on with his life. Like, bitch, it's you. You know it's you. Quit.
Right.
Like,
yeah, quit playing.
Dumb.
And then, like, they have this moment. It's like she hears someone talking, like, in the front of her gallery. She walks out and she sees him, and she's got, like, tears in her eyes. And he's got, like, a weird beard to indicate that he's older.
Weird beard.
okay.
Even though she just saw him on Graham Norton.
Yes.
So that sweet, amazing, handsome actor whose name I'm not even going to try to pronounce.
Nicholas.
Well, Nicholas.
Nicholas.
Yeah, but, like, what's his like?
No, that's as far as I get. Keri said it earlier.
That's fair. He's 30 in real life, or about to be 30. So, like, I don't know why they tried to age him up, because, like,
Yeah. Well,
he
because
just his age.
his regular face, like his face,
I guess
was
I don't
supposed to
know.
indicate the 24-year-old.
That was
Yeah,
the
but
whole
24
reason
to
they
29,
aged him
like,
up. That was the whole
yeah.
reason they aged him up
Yeah.
from 20 to 24 was because of
They
Nicholas.
should have aged
Yeah.
him down the whole rest of the movie, because it was so, like, that. I don't know. Like, that's another thing in the movie I didn't like, is that, like,
We don't want another
Anne
Benjamin Button
Hathaway
situation.
looks younger than what she is. Let's face it. So here's Anne Hathaway looking like barely 30, and here's this.
AI his face.
Right.
They should have.
For the entire movie, so that he could have his normal face at the very end
For the last
2
37
minutes.
seconds. Like, would have been perfect.
So I have to read this very last paragraph of the book because it is so epic and probably one of my favorite endings.
It's so great. It is so
good. Okay. And this does not happen. This is not normal in romance to have an ending like this. Like, there is always an epilogue. There is always a happily ever after. And that's why I love this book. And that's why this reread was so enjoyable, because I knew this, like, ending was about to, like, ruin my life.
I could name you 3 books right now that have the, like, twist end that will leave you heartbroken but happy at the same time. But I don't want to name them because I don't want to ruin the end for you.
Oh, Okay. All right, I'm gonna read this. Okay. He called me in the beginning every day, multiple times, although I would not answer, and he texted, at first often, and then every few days or so. It went on for months, these little messages that would paralyze me, and to which I resisted responding because I made a choice. And then the text messages say, I miss you, I'm thinking of you, I still love you. And then she says, and then one day they stopped, long before I had stopped loving him. Why?
Broken.
Distraught.
It was rough. That was rough.
Horrible, but also fantastic. Like, I was like struggling through a lot of this book, and then just that ending was just too good. All right, final verdict. We all know what Crystal's verdict is for a book or movie.
I mean, I'm not going to say one or the other. Like, first of all, the movie sucked anyways. And it wasn't because, like, because it was different enough from the book that you can think of them as separate stories almost.
Yeah.
Similar, but different. I didn't like the movie. I don't think I would ever read the book again, but I'm glad I did.
Yeah. I think for myself, like I said, I think of them as two completely different entities. Like, the movie was very enjoyable to rewatch. I literally just had a flashback of them having sex and then him ordering chicken fingers after.
Right? I heard,
Like, right when I was thinking of the movie, that was the first scene I just thought of. Okay, book. I'm picking the book. Just because of the chicken fingers.
I remember,
chicken fingers or the worm? Chicken fingers or the worm?
Neither.
All right, Lindsay.
I'm going book.
Okay, book. All right, so I do have a little bit of background information. From the author, I have a quote from Robinne Lee, which I love this quote. So she said, I wanted to write a novel that challenged certain myths, that female sexuality ceases to exist after we hit middle age, that having kids makes us no longer sexually attractive or viable, that women at a certain point in their lives, the point where they should be at their strongest and most prolific, become invisible. I love that.
That's not the experience I had. I don't want to discount the experience that other women have, though. I totally see that in some of my friends and my peers.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, at the moment when everybody else was thinking, oh, I'm invisible, I was out having a blast.
Yeah.
Like, I was having my sexual awakening. Like, I was having my party 20s. Is it something that happens to a lot of women? Probably. Yes, I've seen it happen. But I also think, like, we're really getting past that as a society.
Yeah, I definitely agree that. So, Robinne Lee is actually an actress and producer. She appeared in Deliver Us, From Eva, Hitch, 7 Pounds, 50 Shades Darker, and 50 Shades Freed, which I think actually shows a lot in her book with all the descriptions of how, like, the celebrity status and how they have to move from place to place with all the fans and the security. Like, the accurate descriptions and how much description there is as they have to move, or how fans react to things. I feel like that shows, like, based on her experience.
Absolutely.
Which I think is interesting. Also, her husband inspired her to write this novel and inspired the name Hayes Campbell because his name is Eric Hayes, which I thought was really cool. And it actually also originally started as a joke with her husband where she asked what he would do if she ran off with a boy in a band. I'm like, okay, but don't do that with a 20-year-old.
Yeah. Which band? Like,
yeah, she also said, I did read an interview, I think it was like with the Hollywood Reporter or something, that she actually managed a singing group. So she knew what it was like to be like with a boy band with an Insanity. with fans.
But what a weird joke to have with your husband.
I know. I was like, oh, okay.
I
And my
mean-
husband was like standing there laughing, and I was like, okay.
To each their own, I
Interesting.
guess.
So the film also features, as we know, like a bunch of original songs by the fictional band August Moon, which you can literally find on Spotify. And the actor who plays Hayes sings the actual songs. So it kind of reminds me, I don't know if anyone has seen Daisy Jones and the Six, which is by Taylor Jenkins Reid. It is, I believe it's on Amazon Prime.
Mm-mm.
And they have a band called Daisy Jones and the Six where the actors actually do sing. And they have the songs on Spotify. It's kind of similar to that. The fictional band even has an Instagram.
Oh, yeah. I went and looked at the Instagram.
Yeah.
They had the songs on there and everything.
Which is wild.
Yeah. They really played into it.
So before we wrap up, let's talk boy bands. Favorite boy bands? I don't even want to say the boy bands I was listening to when I was younger.
I mean, for me, it was New Kids on the Block. And then Boys to Men almost immediately after. But like New Kids on the Block, like The Right Stuff. Like my sister and I used to like make up and choreograph like dances in our living room and make my brother do it. He hated it. And we would like have our parents hold flashlights to like be the spotlights on us. Like, yeah, New Kids on the Block for me.
Lindsay, you got
Okay. My one boy band, by definition, boy band. The Jonas Brothers.
Lindsay, that was mine. That was mine, Lindsay. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I feel so much better because I literally was like, I was genuinely trying to think of a boy band. I could not think of a single boy band that I was listening. I didn't really listen to like NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, or anything because that was like during my generation that a lot of my friends were listening to.
My brother was really into NSYNC.
Yeah, like
No Strings Attached was his album.
Yeah, I never really listened to them at all. And I was like, to be honest, the band that is like equivalent to what air quotes like an actual boy band is would have to be the Jonas Brothers. And I listened to so much Jonas Brothers.
I went through a vest phase. I was wearing vests because of the Jonas Brothers.
Oh my gosh,
not the best. Oh my gosh, not the best. It was like the time of like Nick Jonas. Like Nick Jonas was like peak my era. Like I loved me some Nick Jonas.
I was a Joe fan.
Aw. That's cute.
That is cute. All right, so let's go and wrap up. This concludes the Idea View, our very first episode. And I think we did a pretty good job, and I hope you all enjoyed it. So don't forget to follow and rate and download our podcast and check out the link in the episode description for all our social medias. Our social media is where you will find ways to contact us in our September episode schedule. Also, make sure to keep an eye out for our October schedule coming soon because spooky season is upon us. Thanks for listening to Based on a Book and happy reading. Bye.
Bye.